What is that? Must you? Thank you. I can't even see myself. Gone off on a tangent. Today's video is gonna be my February no. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is gonna be my January reading wrap up. Would you believe it is now February? The first book I read last month was Your Turn to Die. Oh, that looks clear, doesn't it? Girl. Okay, so the first book I read was Your Turn to Die by Sue Warman. In this book, our main character, every single year for Christmas and New Year's, she goes to this house called Roseshot House. She used to go there with her mum and her dad, but her parents aren't together anymore. So this year she's there with her mum and her sort of stepdad, like he is her mum's new boyfriend. So she's there with her mum, her mum's boyfriend, her aunt, her two cousins, her aunt's daughters, their friend Jacob. Jacob is the son of Leah's aunt's best friend. None of that is super relevant to the story, so I'm not gonna go into it too much. They're all there. Those three, Leah, Ivy, and Jacob, they call themselves the Amigos. This year, though, everything's a little bit different at Roseshot House because, namely, there was a body found in the garden that's been there for 60 odd years. And it turns out that it's the sister of the woman who used to live there. She moved into a nursing home, and that house was taken on by this man who lets out sort of holiday homes in the area, and that's Roseshot House is one of those homes, and he lets it out to this family. So the woman who used to own the house has literally just died in the beginning of the book. And before she died, she was like, hey, by the way, my sister's buried in the garden. And then she died, literally. She didn't say anything else, she just died after that. And also this year there's this girl called Tatum who's staying with them, and she is sort of, I forget really who Tatum is. She's the daughter of someone who's like a friend-ish of one of the adults in this book. The adults all, there's nothing really to distinguish the adults, so I've gotten it a bit confused in my head, but none of it matters anyway because this book is not good. It's pitched as like a sort of YA thriller, and it wasn't thrilling. It wasn't good. It was not a good start to my reading year. The only word that really comes to mind is bland. The characters were bland, the story was bland. The whole plot is set up around a body having been found in the garden in the house that they've been staying at every year for X amount of years, so it's a shock to them. It taints the happy memories that they've had at Roseshot House. Tatum decides to film a documentary about the whole thing, and none of that is interesting. Just the fact alone that a body's been found in the garden of the house they've been staying at every year for X amount of years, that fact alone could have made for a really interesting story, but it just didn't. The story wasn't written very well at all, in my opinion. It just wasn't very captivating. Plot points weren't really expanded on so well. I don't want to say I'm disappointed because that would imply that I went into the book with expectations, but I didn't. I just sort of picked it up on a whim really because the book was called Your Turn to Die and the plot sounded somewhat interesting to me. I've only read 3 books so far this year, but this book is currently sitting at number 1 of the worst books that I've read in 2019. So it's got that going for it, I guess. It's not a book that I would recommend. To touch on the point of it being poorly written, on page 32, it's mentioned that the police should have checked that Rose really was in Switzerland. And I read that thinking, why are we talking about Switzerland? There's been no mention of Switzerland up until this point, so why are the police checking if Rose really was in Switzerland? Rose is the name, by the way, of the girl who was found buried in the garden. That's all mentioned, right, on page 32. And it's not until page 64 where it's mentioned that Rose is meant to have gone to Switzerland to be some lady's helper, and that's why she's just upped and disappeared without a trace. That's when it made sense. Oh, that's why the police are looking into Switzerland, because that's supposedly where she's meant to have gone. The information was given to you in reverse. They should have said that she'd gone to Switzerland to be a lady's maid and then asked the question of why the police didn't fact check that she really was in Switzerland. That's just one example of it being poorly written. It's the main one that jumps out at me right now. It's the only thing I've read by Sue Warman, and it's likely to stay the only thing that I've read by her because I didn't enjoy it, so I'm not really inclined to pick up anything else that the author's written. So the next book that I read in January was I Almost Forgot About You by Terry McMillan. So in that book, our main character Georgia is fed up with where her life is right now. She's middle-aged, twice divorced, and both of her 2 daughters have grown up and moved out of home. She's not completely alone in life or anything, but she's got a big house and she lives there by herself. The death of a man that she loved in the past has sort of caused her to look on her life and reflect on everything. She's decided that she's just not happy with where she is, basically, and that she's got to create upheaval in her life and just change things. She's decided that she wants to see how all the other men that she's loved at some point in her life She wants to see how they're doing now and let them know what they meant to her, basically. And that is the premise of the whole book. I listened to it on audiobook, by the way. I loaned it from my library. It's the first book by Terry McMillan that I've read, and guys, for me it sort of started what I hope is going to be a love affair with Terry McMillan's books. She also wrote How Stella Got Her Groove Back. I actually knew it was a movie before I knew it was a book. I want to watch all the movie adaptations of her books, and I want to read everything that she's written currently because I just loved this book. It took me a while to listen to it, actually. I loaned it from the library in November. I only had it for, I think, 2 weeks before I had to return it, and then I was put back on a waiting list, which is why I only just finished reading it now. The book centers around Georgia, obviously, because she's the main character. Because she's not a character that lives in isolation, you know, she's got friends and family. We do hear a lot about the friends and family stories as well. And I think that that's what some people took issue with. To be fair, the story does meander away from her finding her past loves and, you know, I guess what the original premise of the story is, but I didn't mind that so much because I found her friends really interesting and their struggles, and her family and their struggles. For me, all of their stories came together in a way that just added depth and richness to the story, and I loved it. I was really glad to have read this book after having read Your Turn to Die because it gave me a lift in that the characters felt real and developed and well-rounded. I think listening to it as an audiobook really made the experience for me as well. The characters seemed even more real. Terry McMillan read the audiobook. I love the relationship between Georgia and her best friends. Their friendships just felt real, and I loved that they had arguments and everything, but that they were always there for each other in the end. The book spans quite a bit of time. I think overall it's probably, there's a few births in the book, so it spans at least 9 months. There are emotional and sensitive moments in the book, as well as moments that had me laughing out loud, like literally laughing out loud. I gave it 5 stars, but I wouldn't say that the book was perfect. There were a few moments that I felt could have been expanded on a little bit. Like I said, it spans months at a time. I feel like certain moments were skipped over when they could have been expanded a little bit more. Sometimes the characters are talking and within their conversation it's mentioned that something kind of big happened. Certain things are mentioned and they're just sort of mentioned like, oh yeah, because you know this happened, and I'm sat there like, wait, what happened? It's just sort of dropped on you a little bit. I don't want to spoil anything, so I feel like this description is kind of not making anything clear. But certain things happen and they're just sort of mentioned briefly. Obviously, to further the story and everything, you can't necessarily expand on all the little things that happen in the book because there are a lot of things that happen. I do feel like certain things that happen could have been expanded more than they were. That explanation was just not the best, but I hope it makes sense. But overall, I really love the story and I don't have any major complaints. I'm really looking forward to reading some more by Terry McMillan, and she is also a Black author, which helps me with my goal of reading more work by Black authors this year, so that's a tick there. I thought the whole thing was just so entertaining. There was so much happening throughout the whole thing, so much drama and so much tea. I really loved the way everything wrapped up as well. I didn't feel like it wrapped up too neatly or anything. I feel like we saw a lot of growth in Georgia as well as in the characters around her, like in her daughters, in her friends and everything. I feel like the story came to a nice natural end, and I'm pumped to read everything else that she's written. Okay, now on to the final book that I read in January, and that was another audiobook actually, and it was Dear Ijeawele by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I think actually it's called Dear Ijeawele, or A Feminist Manifesto in 15 Suggestions. It's a bit of a long title. I listened to that on audio. So that book is a really short one. I think it's only about 66-ish pages, like somewhere around there. So the book is basically an adaptation of a letter that Chimamanda wrote to a friend of hers who asked her how to raise her daughter feminist. That book as well, you guys, was another 5-star read for me. It was short but powerful. It touched on so many things that are so relevant, and I think every woman should hear, really. Not just mothers trying to raise their daughters. Women and girls in general should listen to this book or read it. Not just women and girls, like anyone can read the book obviously, but I think it's particularly important for women and girls to read it because there's so much in it that is so relevant and so necessary. It's a book that I want to revisit for myself from time to time because I feel like whether you have a daughter or not, you stand to learn something from this book. It didn't come across as preachy or like you must do this, you must do that. They're all suggestions, like, after all. She made a lot of valid points to me. One thing that she does say in the book is that when fathers do something for their children, like for their daughters, don't make a song and dance about it, like, hey, well done, good for you, yeah, kind of thing, because they're not doing any favors. They're doing what they should be doing as the father of the child, you know? It shouldn't be something that's like, oh my gosh, yay, well done. It should be expected, basically. Unless you're a single parent, you shouldn't be acting like a single parent, if that makes sense. Like, you shouldn't be doing everything for your child by yourself, because you made the child together, so you should raise the child together, basically. It makes a similar point with like housework and things. Like, obviously it's appreciated that they do stuff, but it shouldn't be like a whole massive production that, yay, he's cleaned the bathroom or he's cooked the dinner or something like that. It shouldn't be made a fuss of. Like she said in the book, to appreciate the cooking, like the food that's been made, but not the fact that he cooked necessarily. Like, she's not saying to mug it and be rude or anything. Don't make it such a thing that they did that, because that would then imply that it's not a man's job to do that. You know, I'm explaining it in a way that's not very... Just read the book, okay? It's a short one, you can fly through it. It's a book that I really enjoyed. It's the first thing that I've read by Chimamanda, and it's 100% not going to be the last. I feel like Dear Ijewale was a great introduction for me to Chimamanda's work, and I cannot wait to read more by her. It's a book that I really want to revisit periodically, just to remind myself of the things that I read. I really liked every suggestion that she made in the book. The things that she mentions in the book are things that I want to implement in my own life and in the lives of my children, like whenever that time comes and everything. It was only a short book, but I feel like I learned a lot from it, and I want to carry the things that I read in that book through to my own life. It's been a while actually that I've read a book from the library and thought, oh, I wish I owned this. But that book, I think I'm going to end up buying my own copy, because I do want to own that book just so I can flip through it periodically. Like I said, it's the first thing by Chimamanda that I've ever read, but I feel like the way she writes just resonates with me. The book is so short, but so impactful and just so quotable. It's one that I recommend with my whole heart to everybody. It's such a quick read. You can literally read it in one go, just like bang it out, listen to the audiobook. The audiobook was literally like an hour and 2 minutes, I think. It was so short, and I listened to it on my commute. I don't know which book of hers I'm gonna go on to read next, but I'm excited for whichever one it's gonna be. So camera angle might be slightly different because I just ran out of space, but anyway. So those were the 3 books that I read last month. So I'm currently 1 book behind schedule, but I'm not too worried, and my hope is that this year I really do manage to only stay 1 book behind at all times. I never want to let it grow. That is basically all I have to say about the books that I read last month. Just to give you guys a little bit of a reading goals update. So far I've read 3 books, meaning I have 49 books left to hit my target of reading 52 books this year. Another goal of mine was to finish series that I've started. Last month I did start the final book in the Hunger Games trilogy, Mockingjay, but I have yet to finish it, so hopefully that's something I'll manage this month. Another goal of mine was to read books by Black authors, and I managed that because this month 2 of the 3 books I read were by Black authors. Started off the year pretty well, I think, in terms of reading goals. That's everything. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please remember to like, comment and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. There should be several buttons on the screen right now, but the button to subscribe should be somewhere over here. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!